From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
Welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. This is your weekly podcast about consumption. With me this week, as always, is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. He is the authority on mass-produced Christmas Advent calendar Michigan craft beers, and he also puts his tongue on blondes. His name is Sean, and he, like I said, is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. Sean, how are you today?
What do I do?
You put your tongue on blondes. It was
blondes. I thought you said wand, like wands, like a magician's wand. I'm like, what does that even mean?
No, I didn't see that video.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was unlisted. I put my mouth on a lot of stuff, but I don't know how often it's a wand.
You know, any port in the store.
Any port in the store. That's exactly what I was saying. That'll work. Yeah, true.
How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm working for the weekend. Yeah, just trying to make it through this Advent calendar. It's taking it out of me.
It's kind of funny because I love watching you do these Advent calendars because you just go through such a range of like rage to like apathy to, okay, I'm kind of into it today, to just being utterly pissed off at a box.
I approach it kind of that way every day. There was one day, I think I was wearing a Sue, the thing from the Field Museum in Chicago, the dinosaur that they named, Pseudo Sue's named after, and it faded. And I put the shirt on and I thought to myself, I've worn this shirt one time. I wore it one time in Chicago and I washed it and the S started washing off of it. And that's like a $30 shirt. And I thought about ranting about it. And then I remembered these are only supposed to be like 5 to 6 minutes. I can't rant about overpriced t-shirt at a museum and still do this in 5 or 6 minutes. So I had to put it on the back burner. Next time I wear it, I'll talk about it.
I might be amused, but you know what? Anytime that you rant on one of these videos is usually entertaining, and you don't do it very often. So
that's too much of my personality. I think I want to keep that part of my personality private or something. But I've thought about incorporating more rants, but that might be a polarizing thing. I'm not sure.
I don't know. You tend to have it come out here sometimes, but
yeah,
not
this
always
is free
when
range.
you're being objective. So
this is free range. Rant.
We're unhinged and
that's what we do.
We have a much longer format than a 5-minute review from a Wisconsin, mass-produced contract brewery?
Contract brewery, right? Yeah. And you know what's funny is I didn't realize that this Aldi box has been, I mean, I knew it's been a thing, but this is the first year that I think it's not just bottles. Previous years it was bottles, and they did like beers of Sweden, beers of Germany and Sweden, or Germany and Norway, or something like that, which is funny because that Costco one is all German and it's almost all exclusively lagers. And this one, somebody actually said, "Oh, I'm hoping for more lagers." And I thought, I think you bought the wrong box. Look, you should have bought the other one. That's full of lagers. You would be tired of them by the end.
You know what's interesting about that Costco? Because I've gotten that Costco box once, and I got it on Christmas, so the whole Advent calendar part.
Yeah, out the window. Yep.
But there were a couple things in that box that were some of the best lagers I've ever had, period. Like, I remember Bach being in it. That was fantastic. No idea what the hell it was called. I know it was like a gold label with like a green horse on the can or something like that.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. And I'm sure there's like 3 or 4 other ones that just totally blew me away. But unless I buy that fucking box again, it's not like I'm ever going to find those again, which is kind of a bummer.
Or even know where you could find them.
Yeah, like locally, Holiday's got a fairly decent little like German beer section in there now, which I don't get there very often lately. But when I do, I find myself kind of grabbing something off there because a lot of stuff's been kind of boring me lately. But there's never anything that far out. It's always like what I assume is like the big traditional styles that come out of Germany that actually make it here, not the weird what you could find in like a German party store. Such a thing exists.
When I was in Hungary, I know that was a lot of places. I'm sure Germany is quite a bit different, but Hungary, there might be 20 craft breweries in Hungary, like the whole country. I think it's 9 million people in the country. So when you go into the store and you just want a beer, it's the local regional beer, but it's a lager and it's their Bud Light or whatever. It's hard to say it's macro because there's, they don't have a lot of macro influence there, but I would assume. And when I went to I was at the airport and they had one of the breweries that was a craft brewery from Budapest was in the airport that wasn't in Budapest, I don't think. Actually, I don't even remember where we landed, but yeah, it was nuts how little they had there. I would assume Germany's just nuts. They'd have all types of craft and everything else. So that'd be a whole different animal. But yeah, the thing with that box, that Kalia box, is you get to it and there are a couple standouts, like you said, that you don't know if you're ever going to try again, but it's just a wash in 20 other lagers that are just so nondescript and not exciting at all. And they start to get very samey after a while, unless they're those different styles.
Yeah, I kind of spaced mine out over the course of 6 months to drink it, which I don't know if that was a good idea or a bad idea. I think it might have been better than trying to drink them all in 1 month. But you're right. There's a lot of them that do just kind of blend together or are not just. I kind of feel the same way about IPA, though. Like, just standard West Coast or for that matter, New England IPA. I feel like a lot of them just kind of blend into the crowd. There's not a lot of them that really stand out as like, oh, this is the IPA that I have to have.
At this point, it's refreshing to just get a straight IPA because,
yeah,
I used to kind of complain, maybe it was more to myself, but you'd go to a brewery and it would say IPA and it still does say just IPA and you're not sure which one you're getting. Am I getting a New England? Am I getting some milkshake IPA? Generally, if it has lactose, they'll tell you. But it's refreshing when you go someplace and they have an IPA and it is just a regular IPA. And you're like, oh, okay, I can enjoy just a regular IPA without feeling like I've consumed 4 meals in this one beer because it's so loaded full of crap. Maybe crap's a strong word.
Wow. I still feel that way even with a just standard IPA, but I get what you're saying. So, some of those, especially the ones that are just adjuncts and fruit bombs, it does feel like you've ate a cow in beer form, which that's what stout is for, right?
Exactly. At least the milk, right?
Right. Anyway, enough on the Christmas beer box. What have you been watching this week?
I've been trying to think of what I watched this week, and it's not been a whole lot. I've been working on these videos and editing some of these podcasts because, we're doing these holiday appropriate ones. So I don't know.
That's fair.
I don't know what else I've been watching. I think I sit down to try and watch something, and then I just don't watch anything. I did finally finish American Animals. I talked about it last week, the heist movie about the art at the college.
Oh, yeah.
So it's Transylvania University in Kentucky because it's near Lexington. That movie is actually really good. If you haven't seen American Animals and you like heist kind of movies where heist movies don't always work out. Usually the people something gets overlooked. Let's put it that way. I was going to say stupid,
right.
But something gets overlooked and something gets overlooked in this movie. And it ends up being really very entertaining. Like, I don't know how true to the actual events it is. It seems like it's pretty true to the real event, but it was, really entertaining. I really enjoyed finishing it. I was kind of kicking myself that I kept falling asleep because it gets really good.
Is Transylvania University in Kentucky a real place or a real university?
I guess so.
Huh.
I didn't look it up, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Interesting. Well, I went a little Christmassy this week, so I watched A Hobo Christmas, which, everyone heard about if you follow us, whether you wanted to or not. I went way off on that, but you get to see wonderful things like you learn how to make hobo stew, which involves a trash can, beer, and meat parts.
Oh, okay.
Not anything in particular, just meat in part form, which a hobo feeds to children.
Let me ask you. I got to ask. When you sent me a picture of the poster, and we'll include it in the notes for Hobo Christmas, when was this movie made?
I'm assuming 86 because it was released as a CBS made-for-TV movie in 87.
I'm just thinking Hobo Christmas is like, I think I responded to you. Is this like a Red Skelton thing? Is this for the Red Skelton fans in the audience? It just seemed like Red Skelton's famous hobo character would be included somehow.
I kept being reminded of Homer's hobo character. Like in the early seasons of The Simpsons, Homer would revert to being a hobo randomly throughout the show. Doesn't really do it anymore because, that's not appropriate. But give me a good hobo movie, I'll probably watch it. You also get to see Lewis from A Christmas Carol. He's in this movie. He's not playing Lewis, but he might as well be. He is a pie-making hobo. He reminds you several times that he makes pies, not hobo stew, but he doesn't tell you what's in the pies. There's several hobo shower scenes, which is a little weird for a CBS TV movie.
This is a TV PG movie?
I mean, I guess. I don't know. And what was the other? Oh yeah, they have the hobo show the children how the difference between a hobo knife and a real knife, like a kitchen knife or
What
whatever.
kind of movie is it? Is it a comedy? Is it
No,
a
it's
thriller?
like it's so the premise of the movie is this hobo like leaves home to be a hobo, ditches his kids, says fuck you, I'm gonna be a hobo, you know.
As you do.
Yep, right. And however many years later, after his kid is grown and a cop, because he's got to be a cop, he goes back to have a hobo Christmas with his son that he abandoned and his grandkids. And over the
Can I
course of the
guess?
movie,
Does the son say, I'm a cop, you idiot?
he should. It would be better. There is a pretty funny scene though where the other hobos are like they're going to make hobo dinner for the hobo family. Lewis goes, now listen, we're going to see whatever the hobo's name is. I'm just going to call him Morris because I don't remember his actual name, but we're going to go see Morris and his grandkids. So no swearing in front of the kids and especially no swearing in front of the cop. They have to preface that. Apparently you can get hobo jailed for swearing. Anyway, it's a pretty
Hobos
stupid
have no
movie.
rights.
It's a pretty bad movie, but it's free on Roku. And I strongly suggest everyone stop what they're doing and watch it because it's that great or not great. Other one that I went and saw Christmas Vacation in the theater just because it was cheap and I like that movie. I don't think we need to go into that. If you haven't seen Christmas Vacation, that's surprising to me. It's literally on for like 3 days straight in December. And then I also kind of took the time to rewatch the classic 1997 movie Jack Frost. Can you guess which one?
Which Jack Frost?
Yeah.
The one with
There's
Michael
the Michael
Keaton.
Keaton one?
The one with Michael
No.
Keaton, where it's a heartwarming tale of a snowman who wants to see his son. I think that's what it's about.
Well, it is a heartwarming tale of a snowman, but he does not want to see his son.
The one that you saw or the
I don't
Michael
even-
Keaton one?
The one that I saw.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen the 97 shitty horror movie, Jack Frost?
I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
So obviously it's not going to be this year because this is going to be the last episode before Christmas, I believe. But that is just got this podcast's MO all over it. It is terrible in all the best ways.
I get that one confused with another movie, and it's got Uncle Sam on stilts or something looking in someone's window, and that might be called like Trick or Treat.
Uncle Sam.
Oh, is it just Uncle Sam?
Yeah.
I don't know how I can get them confused, but I do.
There is a horror movie called Trick or Treat 2 with a kid named Sam in it. But Uncle Sam is another shitty mid-late 90s, maybe even early 2000s horror movie with actual Uncle Sam, the Patriot,
I want
pointing
you.
at you guy. Yeah, that guy.
Pointing at you, guy.
Yeah, he's got a horror movie, and it's not very good. And I believe he's on stilts through a good portion of it. Could be wrong. So I haven't watched it in a while. Maybe that could be the 4th of July episode. I don't know.
We could make another holiday episode about that one.
Yeah. And then past that, I didn't really watch a whole lot else. I kind of felt like shit through most of the week. So I spent a lot of couch time just kind of with the TV on, but staring at it kind of blankly, but I'm mostly out of it. So I'm trying to soldier through, get through this episode and hope if I die, then just,
This is your legacy.
well, if I die, just finish the episode without me and then we'll be back next week. Anyway, the movie that we're watching this week is actually up in popularity. It's up to number 1010, which is somehow up from 890. Is that? Yeah. Okay. It is up 896 spots to number 1010. This is a weird popularity scale. It's the movie Rare Exports, which is a Finnish holiday story of sorts, I guess. We're going to call it a holiday movie. Do you want to try to tackle this plot line or you want me to try to do this?
No, I'm very good at pronouncing foreign words. So I'm just going to read the top summary.
I'm going to butcher the shit out of this stuff today, so you go right ahead.
In the depths of the In the depths of the Corvatanturi Mountains, 486 meters deep, lies the closest ever guarded secret of Christmas. The time has come to dig it up. The Christmas everyone will believe in Santa Claus. I don't know if that's a good summary for the beginning of the movie, but it
I don't
kind
feel
of
like
sells
that really
the movie
tells
short.
you what this. It really sells the movie short. Like, it doesn't really give you an idea of what kind of ride you're in for with this movie.
The second one, so there's a second summary. I'll read that because this actually is a little bit better of a summary because it kind of tells you what happens in the movie. I don't even know if I want to read this. It seems like spoiler alert. On Christmas Eve in Finland, Santa Claus is unearthed in an archaeological dig. Soon after, children start disappearing, leading a boy and his father to capture Santa, and, with the help of fellow hunters, they look to sell him back to the corporation that sponsored the dig. And then there's Santa's elves, who are determined to free their leader.
That last sentence is pretty well placed. I like that. If I remember right, neither of us have what we both went into this movie fresh, right?
That's correct. I've heard of this movie. I wanted to watch it for a while because I've heard good things, and this is my first viewing.
So I actually had not heard about this movie, and after watching it, I did just a little bit of like clicking around and trying to find out a little bit more about it. And I guess there's 2 other short films that
The film is based on,
I guess. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Prerequisites that kind of led to this getting greenlit and turned into a full feature-length story. I gotta say, like, not going into this movie about as blind as you can for a movie, just knowing the very, very basic premise of the way you said it to me is like these guys catch and sell Santa Claus is, I think, how you sold it to me. And I was like, okay, sure. And I think I was entertained by a picture of an explosion too. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the thing exploding in one of the IMDb pictures. Yep.
this movie actually did a really good job of drawing me in and kind of holding my attention more than I expected it to. In fairness, it is a movie that is primarily in Finnish, so you do have to read captions, which is not a bad thing, but it does kind of force you to pay attention to the movie because unless you speak Finnish, you're really not going to go know what the fuck is going on unless you're watching the whole thing. But for what this movie is, I mean, this is like an hour and a half long story. It's not very long. It's not very drawn out. It doesn't really waste any time with anything. It kind of gets right to the point of what you need with it and kind of chugs along without any real problem through this whole movie. I was thoroughly surprised at how much I enjoyed watching this movie.
When I first started watching this, I turned the captions on, the subtitles, and they at the beginning of the movie, they speak English because it's like a British company that's they're digging in this mountain that they soon tell you is basically a burial mound. And I was like, oh, well, I don't need the subtitles on at all. This is all going to be in English. And then you get like 10 minutes in, and then it's all subtitles for the most part. I mean, there's a few parts here and there that are in English, but it's very few and far between. But yeah, that didn't distract me from like you said, when you're reading or you're watching a movie that's subtitled, it forces you to kind of focus on obviously paying attention and reading what they're saying, or else you're not going to have any clue what's going on. If it wasn't an entertaining movie, I could see it being like, yeah, I don't have the patience to read through these captions. I'm just going to watch something else. But this movie, like you said, it does enough where it just kind of holds your attention and you feel like, well, I want to know what happens. Like, how do they get out of this? How does all this go down? When does Santa come in? Because it's kind of a little bit of time before the mystery kind of unravels while you watch it, obviously, but that kind of it doesn't take too long, but they build it up really in a good way that keeps you like watching it, not necessarily on the edge of your seat, but you're like, what's going to happen next? When are they going to reveal this? What does this do? You know?
Yeah. And I do think for this movie that the subtitles almost help keep me engaged with it, because I think if this movie was in English through the whole thing, I think it would have been a lot easier to find myself kind of doing the typical get distracted, pay attention to something else, and just kind of piece together what you're seeing out of the movie. Because you had to be so intent on it, it really held everything a lot longer. It actually, the last foreign film that I watched that I really enjoyed and it had a similar type of feel to it, different storyline, was, did you ever see Troll Hunters?
No, but I get this movie confused in my head with it. I've seen part of Troll Hunters. I haven't seen the whole thing, but when I was thinking of this movie to recommend a watch for this Christmas episode, I was thinking of Troll Hunters at the same time because they're very, not necessarily similar, but they take place in kind of a similar setting in the winter, in the forest and all this. So I was kind of like, are they the same movie? I don't think they are.
It's a very similar feel of a movie, which Troll Hunters is great too. Like, that's one that we can come back to at a separate time, but that one definitely deserves its own topic. But it doesn't have the story that revolves around the kid main character, but it's got that kind of lowish budget feel. I don't want to say like low budget, like it doesn't feel like a movie like Jack Frost, it's clearly a low budget movie.
Yeah, but it doesn't
But it
feel like
doesn't
a triple A Hollywood production.
So everything that you can see in it, like you can kind of watch and have a pretty good idea of how they're pulling off whatever effect it is that they're pulling off without overthinking it, but it works really well in a practical way. There is humor in the movie that works pretty well, and even being in a foreign language, you can still catch it. It comes off as genuine and funny. It doesn't have that like overly produced Hollywood comedy to it, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I actually, for what I could get out of these characters, even though I had kind of found his dad to be a prick through half the movie, I kind of found myself relating to like everyone in their own way. For whatever reason, it really worked on me in this movie.
I have to agree with you about the humor part. It can be very difficult when you're watching a foreign movie, especially one that's subtitled, and to not be able to pick up that they're trying to be funny. But like one of my favorite quotes in the movie that comes up is, I think it's the older kid. I think his name is, God, what is that? The kid that he's riding on the snowmobile with. Not
Pietari or whatever.
Pietari, yeah. Let me look at what he's top billed in here. Oh, Juso. He's
Juso,
like, yeah. He says the real Santa's totally different. The Coca-Cola Santa is just a hoax. Actually, that's what Pete. Jesus, we're gonna have the hardest time pronouncing these people's names, by the way. But Pietari, the kid, he's like he's basically the main character. He says that to whatever the other kid's name is. What is it? Juso
or something.
Because they get that confused with the little dog that he carries around, which I think is like Jeppy or something like that.
I didn't even realize the little dog he carries had a name. I kept referring to his friend as the kid from Christmas Story with the rat tail hat on. Just because he had the rat tail and the red hair.
Cousin Eddie's kid? Oh, you mean Christmas Story. I'm thinking you meant Vacation.
Well, his kid's got a rat tail too, but a different kind of rat tail. So
yeah. We'll just call him Peter, because that's pretty much what that should translate to, I would think.
What are we going to call the other one then?
Well, he's not in it that much. We'll call him Mullet Kid. Actually, that wouldn't differentiate him at all. If this is a Finnish movie, these people have awesome mullets. Like all the kids have great mullets. You're like, that is a nice looking mullet right there.
I kind of appreciate the style of these characters that are the adults. They all wear kind of tattered winter, like heavy duty gear where, I mean, the kids don't wear pants through half the movie for some reason, but
yeah. I like the thing. They get kind of, Peter specifically, Pietari gets all geared up for war, right? He's got his hockey gear on and he's got his Jaffa helmet on. But one thing I noticed, and I never quite understood why he was doing this, they tape cardboard. He tapes cardboard to his butt. I don't know why that is.
I didn't quite get that either.
Is that for the spanking?
I guess. I mean, they don't directly say the name Krampus. They kind of lead you down a path of saying Santa is actually Krampus. Or at least that's kind of what they're hinting at.
Yeah, Pietari goes through the movie starts and it's basically the last couple days before Christmas. And he has this advent calendar that he's going through. And on the 24th, he like staples it closed so he doesn't have to open it. And it's 2 days before Christmas. He notices that there's like footprints on like a roof or an awning that goes up to his room, and the lights are unplugged, the Christmas lights he had plugged in. And he's in the attic and he's going through this library. And that was the other thing. Like, where did he get all these books about the history or the story of Santa Claus? Like it was just this
some really amazing artwork in those books.
And he goes through and they were showing the artwork, and it's got, like you said, it shows Santa Claus like dipping kids in boiling cauldrons.
Boiling them, yeah.
Yeah, he's like...
he's fucking them up.
Yeah, he's like flaying the skin with these like branches, and he has the big horns and stuff. So, yeah, it's almost like... I mean, Krampus is more of obviously a European story or character, but he's like the inverse to... He's like the bad cop to the bad cop, good cop versus Saint Nick. And these books that he's reading, like you said, it basically says like, no, Santa, he ain't a great guy. Like if you're good, he's fine, he's terrific. But if you're a naughty kid, and they reference it throughout the entire movie, like, hey, when we're digging this thing up, there's no smoking. Your men can't smoke anymore. They can't swear. There's no fighting. So they really put together these books. They tell the story really well. But I guess the cardboard on his butt is so if he gets spanked, it's not going to be too severe.
I mean, that makes sense, but looking at it, I was like, what? I kind of forgot about it, and I kind of noticed it a couple times. Like, why does he have a box on his, oh yeah, he's protecting himself or whatever. But I mean, if you look at how Santa, before you actually see Santa in this movie, if you look at how Santa is depicted, I don't think those hockey pads are going to help him a hell of a lot from whatever that Santa's going to do to him.
No, well, that's what he's got.
Yeah, well. So basically what ends up happening as you see the shit like start to go down as we're going through the advent calendar, you're seeing the town kind of, like you said, kids are disappearing. The entire area's livestock is just straight up massacred. What they say, like $85,000 worth of reindeer are just dead.
Yeah. Yep.
And I guess if I'm piecing this together, having only watched it once and not speaking Finnish, they had an agreement with the mining company or whatever it was that was working on the mountain that you stay on your side of the fence, we'll stay on our side of the fence. They weren't supposed to fuck with their wildlife, so they could eat it, sell it, whatever they do. And when all the reindeer died, that's when the townsfolk, the ruffians, get pissed and decide to go up to the mountain and see what the hell happened. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's ever said that that's the agreement, but I think the kids know not to go. Yeah, the kids know not to go through, go through the fence, and it's like they call it the border. And I think the border, actually, this mountain that they're drilling is in Russia because they make a lot of references to Russia, like, oh, they're Russian.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. But yeah, so they go up to kind of say, hey, what's up? You killed a bunch of our livestock or something. Wolves from your side came to our side because there's a hole in the fence. And they killed all these reindeer, that's what, like you said, that's what they use for food, or that's what they're going to sell or whatever. So they're going to try to get their money. And that's when they discover this huge hole in the earth where they've been. I mean, this thing's massive. The Rauno is Peter's dad. He throws this big flare down into the hole and you never see it actually like hit the bottom. And that's not even the hole that was on the mountain because they have to go up to the mountain. And that's when they start to notice that like something's not right around here. They're doing a little bit more than what they claim to be doing. They don't know what they're doing quite yet, but it's not what they said they were going to be doing.
They do a pretty good job, though, of setting the scale of them being on this mountain for what is a relatively small movie. Just getting the scale of how far they have to travel up this mountain, like you mentioned, how far down that flare goes, how big this hole is, and ultimately what comes out of the hole, how big that is. They do a pretty good job of making you kind of feel the gravity of the situation.
I think the effects in this movie are really good. There's a few, I mean, for this isn't like a $2 movie. There's a lot of
CG
technique
in it.
Yeah, and most of it looks pretty good. I think the parts that I thought weren't great, and it could be that this is a 2010 movie, is the big ice block at the end looked kind of, it didn't look great. And then
you talk about the one with Santa in it.
Yeah, and when they're all running after the helicopter into the reindeer pen, that's funny looking, but it doesn't look great, but it's convincing-ish.
Yeah.
All the elves
works for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the big like mystery of this movie comes in, is like they lead you to think that Santa has escaped from this giant hole, and essentially they lead you to think for most of the movie that Santa is this old, stringy, gnarly dude who shows up and churns redhead mullet Juso kid into like a straw doll or something like that, and basically is like just creeping on kids in town. And as a viewer, you're thinking that, okay, he's gonna like torture them or eat them or whatever. The characters in the movie just think he's some fucked up old guy that they're going to use for ransom to get their money back for the livestock that they lost.
Yeah, they're going to exchange. It's going to be like a prisoner exchange. They're going to exchange him for the money. And all these things in town start going missing, like hair dryers or tools,
radiators.
And you're kind of like, what? They don't tip the hand to tell you, like, what does this all mean? It's actually, when you find out why they're gone, the kids start disappearing. At first, they think that Juso, specifically his dad, thinks that he just like took off and he'll be back, and he's going to get
a girl or something,
right? And he's like 13 or something. But all the kids are, not all of them, but all the kids except for Peter basically are all replaced by these, like you said, these woven like straw dolls that are really creepy looking. Like that's kind of freaky. Sure. But so they start, the old scrawny dude, they notice that he like kind of perks up. He's basically catatonic. laying in Peter's dad's kill house. Basically, he's like a butcher,
slaughterhouse. Basically,
he's a butcher.
Yeah.
He's like the town butcher. Actually, all these guys are probably butchers, but he's laying there, and
they say they're hunters, so I'm assuming they all butcher livestock or whatever.
They notice that the old guy, starts twitching. He falls in this wolf pit where it's basically like a punji pit with all the stakes that a false floor that you fall through to trap livestock or trap predators, and not the predator, but predators. And he's not conscious, but he starts to kind of perk up when A, he smells gingerbread, and B, Peter comes around because he's the only existing kid, and you're like, oh, this Santa wants to eat this kid because he's clearly emaciated because he's not eating. And the mystery later is revealed that no, he's not Santa. They take him to the mountain to call in the corporation to come pick up their Santa for their money, and that's when you realize on their way there he's only one of the elves. He's actually one of Santa's elves that are there to try to free Santa. And I think the big reveal, if we're ready to kind of reveal it, is that Santa is actually frozen in a big block of ice with just his horns sticking out. And they've stolen all the radiators and the guy's wife's hairdryer and all these appliances to basically speed up the thawing process to thaw out this block of ice. It's a really cool, really smart way to tell this story that, like you said, I know for me, and I'm assuming for you too, going through it and watching this, you're like, where is this leading to? Like, what are the elves doing? And then when you see the big reveal, it's like, oh, that's genius. That's a really good idea. How'd they come up with this stuff?
Well, and what's great about it, so one, this is not just like so if these old guys are your average, we'll say 5'8" to 6 foot tall old guy, roughly, Santa is like King Kong Santa.
Yeah.
He's fucking huge. He is like somewhere between King Kong, Godzilla, and Krampus all just joined into one giant ice block.
He is a big bitch.
Yeah. And what's really entertaining about this is once you get that big reveal, the way the movie ratchets up and the way the craziness of the story ratchets up, like from there, because I don't remember if it's at the same time or right after that, they find all the kids. They're all just sitting in sacks, like next to these ovens that are turned on, like a sacrifice to King Kong Santa.
Yeah.
And what they end up, spoiler if you haven't seen this 12-year-old movie, but which there's a good chance you haven't, because I have seen a lot of people that even know about this movie. But what they end up doing is they kind of use all these kids. So they end up figuring out that the elves are actually the ones that are kind of doing Santa's bidding, but they also kind of realize they're kind of stupid and easily manipulated. So they're going to essentially lure them into a trap and try to domesticate them.
Yeah, pen them up in the reindeer pen.
What I love about it is they literally just take a net and they fly like all the town's children in a helicopter over this forest with Peter, our hero, with his little stuffed animal puppy dog hanging off the side of the neck by his little like 8-year-old hand or however old he is. Just no problem. I'll just Spider-Man up there and just ride this fucking helicopter outside of the helicopter while these kids are still in sacks in a net being used as bait.
Juso too. He's the first one. He's the one that they actually uncover, and he sees his dad sees him, and he's like, "Oh, my son," and they're like, "No, we can't. He has to be covered up." So they put him back in the sack, and they're just flying around with this big, like 3-leaf shamrock shaped net, carrying all these kids with Peter on top of it. And the thing that we didn't mention, all these elves are naked as a jaybird, and all their dogs are flopping around. And the whole time you see them, they're like not making there's no even attempt to cover them up. It's just like old man dick hanging out like everywhere. So if you're not experienced with old man dong, you can watch this movie because there's a shit ton of them.
If you haven't watched a Jackass movie, it might catch you by surprise. If you watched a Jackass movie, you're probably going to be fine. But
yeah, they use these kids as bait to take all these guys to the reindeer pen, and in the meantime, the fathers, the hunters, find a big case of dynamite, and they drill all these mini holes throughout the entire big block of ice that Santa's in and stuff it with all this dynamite. And I think that's picture like 6 or whatever. We'll include it in the notes too, of the IMDb pictures of this shed, conveniently named shed number 24, which mirrors the advent calendar's 24 that Peter stapled closed, and just kaboom, like what wipes this thing out. It's pretty cool. And then that's not even the end.
No, it's not. And they also managed to saw off Santa's horns somehow, because they had them on the truck, which that never came back for anything. Like, I had a feeling that was somehow going to be a like plot point that would come back. The fact that they have these giant Santa horns.
Yeah, like selling it or something.
Anything. Yeah. So basically that's not the end, but that's kind of the end of where the like true craziness in this movie is. Because after that, they basically just kind of wrap up with really what the premise of the short films were, from my understanding, is that they're taking these elves that kind of look like Santa once you put clothes on them, and it's like training dogs but slower somehow.
Yeah, they're training all the mall
teaching
Santas.
Yeah, they're basically teaching them to be Santas and exporting them around the world.
Yeah, and they have all these boxes with all the little different locations, like the Bahamas or wherever, all these places where they don't have Santas, I guess. So they're exporting from Finland across the world the origin or the, I don't know, birthplace. So that they're advertising it as being like the birthplace of the real Santa Claus or something to that effect. It's pretty clever at the end, the way that they kind of wrap the movie up.
I would have really liked to have seen the I'm gonna ruin the name of the movie or the short film, but there's one of the earlier movies or films for this was like How to Behave Around Santa or something like that. And I've seen just 2 like second clips of it, and it tells you like the don't swear, don't smoke, don't drink or whatever. And it just shows some dude in like a wife beater, like throwing a beer bottle, smoking and swearing. And you see Santa like just jump out of this cage like a rabid bear and like maul this guy. I'm like, I kind of wish I had seen that too. Like, that would have been entertaining, but you don't get that in this movie. So I'm sure that's available on the internet still somewhere, and I'll go back and get it. The other thing that I although the explosion that they get is pretty spectacular, I would have liked to seen King Kong Santa get out and kind of kick some ass or do something other than be frozen. That's the biggest part of this movie that I feel like is a letdown, is that you see Santa, but you don't really see him do anything.
Yeah, you don't really even get to see him in his full glory because he's in this block of ice. He kind of moves around a little bit, and I think you get like a smile or something out of him that's kind of freaky, but
you see like an ice chip or something like that.
Yeah, like it cracks. And that you bring that up, and that's a good point, is that you see this big Santa, but it never really pays off. And the other thing, this movie is kind of marketed as being, I don't know, a action horror film. And there is action. It says here on IMDb, it says adventure fantasy horror. And it does have kind of an action adventure kind of feel to it. But I don't, other than the part where the Santas start showing up like the elves start showing up as like zombies kind of surrounding them, and they have to figure out how to get away from them. Yeah. That's the only part that really has any kind of horror to it. I mean, there's suspense kind of little pieces to it, mystery, where you're trying to figure out what's going on. But I didn't really feel that there was much of a horror element to it.
Yeah, and I was going to say that too. I don't really find much horror in this. I feel like it's certainly a weird movie. It's out there, but I've seen a lot of weird movies, and I don't think they all just weird doesn't equal horror in my book. Like, it has to be more than that. It's entertaining, but it's almost got like a little bit of a like mystery to it, especially leading up to the end. But I don't really feel like this is something that I would put in the horror category either.
I feel like it's a good addition to a very tired Christmas group of movies. There's so many Christmas movies that are out that are just like, and even the ones that are trying to be scary or horror Christmas, that seems like it's becoming a bigger category as we go. It seems like more recently we've had a lot more.
Especially.
Well, before this, we had Santa's Sleigh. We had obviously
Silent Night, Deadly Night,
that whole series. Black Christmas. Yeah, there's a few, but it seems like, this year, either Santa is a killer He's like a scary character, or he's making his list and he's checking it twice and he's taking care of, he's a vigilante kind of character, which is really weird. But I feel like this is a good addition, especially this is a 12-year-old movie. Like you mentioned earlier, it's probably not one that too many people have heard of. I mean, I think, my thing was that, oh yeah, this is the movie where they, like I said, they hunt down Santa and they sell him off. And that's kind of what happens. There's not so much of the hunting. Maybe in the grand scheme, like Santa actually hunts these guys, these people. But I think it's a good addition. I just don't think it's really a horror movie. I just think it's a good addition to the Christmas genre if you're looking for something that's not traditional. But I think if you're looking for a horror movie, this isn't going to be, it's not going to satisfy any kind of those horror vibes that you might get.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's an excellent addition to the Christmas genre just because it's so different from any Christmassy movie that I can think of. And really, it's different than most. Like, even if you take the Christmas element out of it, I can't think of this wouldn't work if it was just a random, like, monster in a mountain. Like, it would work, but not the same, I can't even think of really a movie, like, even if you just call this a monster movie, it doesn't work to this extent. But yeah, I can't really slide this into any one area, even like in a horror subgenre. It doesn't fit me either. So,
well, you can tell that the movie was made specifically about this. I mean, it wouldn't work. I couldn't even think of another character where they have henchmen, maybe Willy Wonka, and the Oompa Loompas were like coming to free him or whatnot, or to do his bidding. And it's clearly obvious with the two previous movies or the two shorts that fed into this that it's totally 100% always been a Christmas thing. But it's just a really cleverly done movie.
Yeah, I totally agree. You want to go hot dogs on it?
Yeah, we can start with hot dogs. You want me to start it off?
Yeah, go for it.
So I would give this a solid 6.5 to 7 out of 11 Santa horns. Like I said before, it's not as scary as I thought it would be. It's almost more of and even with the language barrier, it's almost more of a black comedy. There's just these moments they just offhandedly say things or things are just kind of mentioned that make it seem really more, like I said, a black comedy than anything with any kind of elements of horror. It does have some action moments. It has that kind of adventurous kind of feeling. Like we both said, it has a bit of a mystery to it. Just, I think that horror is a mislabeled thing. It's not really frightening at all, but it is a really fun movie regardless of it not being horror. It's just really fun.
Yeah, so I'd probably give this a solid 7.5 hot dogs out of 10 cardboard butt flaps. Like I said, I don't think this is a horror movie, but this actually gets an extra point or so just because it is a Christmas movie. And any type of Christmas movie that I can watch that breaks up the monotony of Christmas, whether it is the traditional Christmas movie that's whatever that is, or the over-the-top horror Christmas movies that's someone in a Santa suit being Jason, basically.
Yeah.
Or anything. This is something different, and I like that. It feels, although it's 12 years old, it has a really fresh feel to it, and it's a fresh take on whatever genre this wants to be called. I don't know how accessible this is. I didn't really look that up, but I'm willing to bet you could find this fairly easily. But it's just an entertaining flick from start to finish. It's engaging. It keeps your attention, and I feel like it would be an easy one to have fun and put on and rewatch. It looks good. It's shot well. The characters are all enjoyable for the most part. They're all likable. Even the ones when you don't like them, they still find ways to entertain you. I really don't have a lot of negative to say about it. I guess my biggest reason why I would give it like any marks down would be just that there's a couple things that don't pay off for what you're kind of teased with on them. And I would have liked to see that kind of flushed out a little bit more.
This is on Hulu. I watch this on Hulu. So if you're subscribed to Hulu, it's right there. The thing also that I feel like this movie is almost a little timeless because of the setting that they're in. They're out in the backwoods, way out in the boondocks of Finland. I don't know how cell service is, and isn't Nokia like a Finnish company, but they
not in that part of Finland.
Yeah, right. It's not a place that you would get cell service. You know what I mean? They're on snowmobiles. Right. They have cars, but they mostly travel on snowmobile. So it's timeless in that respect. It's a 12-year-old movie, but it doesn't feel that way. That's a plus for it too. I like the fact that it doesn't have to exist in a specific time frame. I'm sure in 10 to 20 years you'll be able to watch this and it'll feel just as fresh as it did. Maybe there might be a new helicopter model that was introduced in that time where the helicopter looks obsolete. But for the most part, it could exist in any time frame and it still works.
I'm sure there'll be great advances in the burlap sack industry to stuff kids into.
Well, yeah, they got to put potatoes in something. That's the thing. That's another thing I thought was funny is they have the cops come out to, not only did this guy's wife's hairdryer get stolen, it's missing, but he's like, yeah, there's something really weird happened in my barn or whatever. And it's that something happened to his potatoes. And they're like, oh, did someone steal your potatoes? He's like, no, actually they didn't. You have to look at this. And you see this just mountain of potatoes in this guy's barn because they took all the sacks to put the kids in. That was really funny.
I do like the cop showed up to investigate a stolen hairdryer.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they say that a cop has to show up if you call him, but I don't feel like a cop would show up if you called to say my hairdryer was stolen. I feel like I would hope they have something better to concern themselves with.
They got to leave people like in Barbarian. They got to leave them out in the city.
Yeah. Take them back to where,
right.
Anyway.
To the scene of the crime.
You got anything you want to add on this?
No, like I said, I just think it's really a fun movie. It didn't really, I mean, the story was very original. I really give it high marks for the story. Again, it's a timeless kind of story, really clever. The reason I kind of knocked it down points wise is, like I said, it was kind of advertised as more of being a horror movie. And if it had some more elements of even suspense, and there are some elements of suspense in it, but if it had more, I probably would have given it a little bit of a higher mark. But overall, it was, like I said, it's just really fun, a fun movie to watch. And it exposed people to who maybe haven't seen something like this before. And
I got to say, of the movies that we've watched for this show that we did not see before we did an episode, like I'm not counting stuff like Halloween or whatever that we had both seen before, just new to us movies. This has probably been the most enjoyable new movie. Like, I'm 12 years old, but new to me, movie that we've watched for the show so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same for me. I'd have to think of what stuff that we watched that I didn't have a lot of prior knowledge. Maybe the Nick Cage movie, that was pretty good too. Let's just say top 5
for sure, easily. So, but yeah, this one's worth checking out. Apparently, it's on Hulu, so go do that while you can. If you can catch this before Christmas, that will make it more fun. Just because you're being festive, festive is good. In the meantime, I apologize if my voice is all shot this week. I'll try to be less shitty next week.
Do better.
Hopefully. I'll try.
I am disappointed.
Yeah, that's me. I'm total disappointment. I've been disappointing all weekend. So anyway, you know the drill. In the meantime, like us, subscribe to us, leave us reviews. That would be super helpful. Let people know about us. That would be the Christmas gift that keeps on giving. And follow us on all the social media crap. We are at Dewey Pod Monster all over the place. Also, Sean's got stuff to tell you about. Sean, talk so I don't have to.
All right. Well, if you're into holiday beer, if you listen to this before Christmas time, you can catch me on my YouTube channel at Draft Therapy. I am reviewing beers from the Aldi Beer Advent Calendar. You can check that out at youtube.drafttherapy.com. You can also follow me on all the social media networks. I actually posted something to my Instagram story this weekend, and I thought I was pretty proud of it. You can check me out on all the socials at Draft Therapy.
Look at you being all social.
I know. Don't get used to it.
All right. Well, in the meantime, like I said, I think this is our last episode before the holiday, so have a great Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, do whatever you do, and we'll talk to you next week. Cheers. Anything else you want to add before we get into our topic of the week?
No.
No?
No.
You sound so thrilled.
I don't have anything else to talk about. I haven't seen anything.